by the end of 6 months, there were 2 of us, it didn't work. There was a lot of learning curve there. Now, maybe I was lucky in that I came to it a bit later, and I'd already been through my own ringer, my own mill a number of times. I was more used to getting disillusioned. The honest answer is, as I said, you have to work, you have to continue your practice, your daily practice. You can't give up and say, well, I've done it now. You haven't done anything. You've simply taken the further step on that road that I saw ahead of me. The next thing was to climb the hills, and in the next lifetime, maybe start trying to climb the mountain. Oh, what the hell, if I'm blowing my own horn, then I'm blowing my own horn. But I had that realization very promptly. There's an awfully long way to go. And although I kind of hoped that somehow I would be disciplined enough and aware enough and wise enough to climb all the way, that was a decade ago, and I ain't going to get that far in this lifetime. Yet oddly accepting that was in itself an initiatory experience. It's like you are what you are. You still have that wounded inner child, because I have a wounded inner child, but that doesn't mean you have to be infantile the whole time. Sometimes, yes, but not most of the time. Not all of the time, maybe most of the time. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to ask if I could add another perspective on this
Please.
question of leaders and
Perspective away.
Being a leader is really difficult. That you become the visible face of a thing, and people tend to project a lot of their own stuff on leaders. And I don't know who you're referring to in terms of these people that you found to be so disappointing, but it can be very difficult for leaders to be, in a sense, possessed by the vision that comes to them, and they're so earnestly trying to manifest this, and sometimes what you want from them and what they have to offer aren't a good match for each other, and you find yourselves in conflict, and you're unhappy with what your leaders are saying to you or giving to you or whatever. So there may be a sort of shared dynamic in this issue of leaders become jerks, perhaps because we've made them jerks in a way.
Yeah, I think this is a key thing, because anyone who becomes a leader figure inevitably gets that psychological projection. You're the illumined one. After all, you all hold this grade, and that's why they put you in charge.
So you do have expectations of them, for sure.
Yeah,
and I get about the projecting of expectations, but it's not like when it's a massive, when there's so many people that all see the same issue in that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That it's not necessarily just an individual.
Then it's up to the leader to step up and say, look, I before you think I'm perfect, you need to know certain things about me. Just so people realize from the get-go that you're still a person struggling to live a human life. But as you said, the danger is of internalizing that projection. I had that happen when I was first put in charge of the group here in Toronto. Without realizing all the things that were going on, I was put in rather early because there wasn't anyone else around. And this was when I was with another group based out of Los Angeles. I bought into the self-image, the publicity. If they put me here, it must be because I'm better than anyone else. I didn't know how to step out of that one, and I had to, step into it, to put it bluntly, before I realized how much I was messing up. And of course, I felt I was trying my best. I was trying to confer this wisdom. Why didn't these people appreciate me? There's unfortunately, in most cases, a learning curve for anyone who is heading a group or an order. And it can be very isolating to be at the top with people thinking, you've got the answers. You know. You just have to keep coming back to the fact that you must continue a daily practice and allow yourself to try and develop a deeper awareness of what's happening with other people. I don't know any other answer on this one.
Oh, that was good.
Another
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
So, when you're making, when we look ahead into the Aeon of Horus, we have these general ideas of what it will look like. One thing I've never really heard discussed much is like clearly in the next maybe like 20 years, 50 years, whatever, we're really integrating ourselves more and more with computers to the point where I'm not literally saying that everyone's going to be a cyborg, but people are going to become more and more connected to technology. Like, do you think that is in any way going to affect the Aeon of Horus, or like, is it a pro, is it a con?
Well, any technology has pros and cons.
Right.
Short answer, yes. I think something like computer technology will be a very vital part of this. Ruach embraces Nefesh. It's an expansion of consciousness beyond that. We're moving into constant neshamic awareness, a spiritual perspective. Therefore, we're going to embrace communication with more people, with more information, with more types of information that we never dealt with before. Quick example might be modern physics or quantum physics. I still can't get my head around that stuff. I try, I read New Scientist every other day on the web, and like, this isn't going in. But a lot of people are absorbing it. It's coming to be part of everyday communication. We will have to struggle with that technology as much as we will appreciate it. Maybe we'll all be playing Neshamic video games, there's some kind of high-end equivalent. The thing that is critical is the development of consciousness. If we are coming at this technology from a deeper, profounder, wider, broader, nicer, finer level of consciousness, of understanding, the relationship shifts with the technology. If we're mesmerized by it, and probably we are still very much mesmerized by it, then we have a problem.
Actually, when you're asking, I think, like the religions, yes, they'll be there, but I think there'll be a technical aspect to increase our consciousness, because if you look throughout history how it was done, at first it was through brutal, through very brutal physical rites, getting yourself so exhausted or so thirsty that your mind gets thrown into like this ecstatic state. And then, so it was done in a very brutal way, very hard on the physical body, and then some shamanistic personality found a psychedelic plant. So we didn't have to go through all that crazy brutality on our body to open up the mind, so to speak, to open up the consciousness. We could do it by simply taking a cup of ayahuasca tea or like some moldy bread or whatever was available out there. And now we don't even have to do the drugs. There's now, in the 1950s, there was a guy named Robert Monroe who started using sound technology to do the same thing. And his was very unique in a way, because a lot of times when people get into these ecstatic states, yes, they learn a thing or two, but they forget most of what they learned. Or they remember they learn emotionally, but it somehow doesn't get into the intellect. And now with the technology, there are cases in his, actually it's the Monroe Institute, it's a very interesting thing to look into. They're using hemisync sound to not only open up the right side of the brain, or the creative side, but it's also harmonizing that side of the brain with the rational side. So whatever we learn doesn't stay up there in the mystic world. It's starting to come down, and because it's sound technology being used, it's much gentler and safer than using the ayahuasca or whatever.
Sure. There's going to be a lot of different techniques.
Or the God helmet that
yeah.
people claim to see visions of God all through just the magnetic resonance, which is much safer again than the drugs.
I think what I was, sorry, maybe I just didn't make myself clear. I think I was just kind of, like, I just was wondering your opinion because we never talked about it before, but I just noticed that it's like a big part of society seems to be, a small part of society seems to be kind of increasingly looking for like an expansion of consciousness. And like, for example, soon we're gonna have like Google glasses so you can be on the internet constantly. And people aren't going to be looking, oh, I wonder what's up with quantum physics. People are gonna be like, oh, that cat did something with a piece of string. And like looking at porno and stuff. So it's like, a lot of people are actually seeking to dumb themselves down and just be like, you know, they just want a constant stream of media so they can block out any chance of actually getting a spiritual connection to something. I was wondering if you saw any, like if that makes sense or if that is something that is made.
First of all, to quote the book of the law, let my servants be few and secret, they shall rule the many and the known. You're always going to get a minority of people who are actually more concerned with consciousness development than entertainment. That's just how it goes. That said, there is a penetration at the mass level coming down, I'm having to use these hierarchical metaphors, coming down into the mass from those who are going ahead. Yeah, Google glasses are going to be a horrible distraction, and I'm sure we'll keep bumping into people on the street who are trying to use the damn things. We've become infatuated with computer technology. I think we need to back off a little bit from mass data download. We're just overloaded with crap. I try and filter what I study, but I still hit 4 or 5 different basic news sites, a couple of mystical sites, and a couple of science sites every day. Well, that's an hour out of my life. And a lot of it is just tittle-tattle, it's gossip, there's nothing that important. There is always the threat there. Never mind about the mass. Always come back to square one, do what the will should be the whole of the law. What is it that you yourself need to be doing? And if there's one person doing it, then you can contaminate other people with the idea that there's more interesting stuff than being mesmerized by whatever's coming in through Facebook or YouTube or in your email, or whatever we develop in the next 10 years, because we'll probably move on to something that's more of a direct biological interface than simple electronic systems. We're going to keep moving ahead. And there will be more of an integration between what is in the actual brain and what the technology is. One thing that seems to get overlooked a lot, though, is that computers really, I'm taking computers in the biggest sense of that, all kinds of portable devices as well, they're ruachish. They're working with a certain kind of logic or developments of regular logic. They are okay, but they are rather limited in a number of aspects. I'm thinking of a blog piece I did several years ago. I had a different blog to the one I maintain now for the temple, and I did a piece called "I Love My New Techno-Modified Chakras." It was the idea of somebody coming in with implants and computer whatnots and messing with the different chakras in the body. The problem being that a chakra is a very tenuous concept biologically. Yeah, there are a few plexi of nerves in these particular areas, but nobody that I'm aware of at this point has actually monitored chakra activity with a biologically monitoring device.